Hello, welcome to this pick a reflection. So, as I was shuffling out the cards into the four piles, I was just processing something that I've been going through. I'm closing out a cycle. It was a very difficult cycle. I had to go through certain things in order to bring to my attention certain programming that was running me, that I was running with, the perspective I was utilizing in order to navigate life, which has been outgrown at this point, right? Like it was a limiting perspective that I don't need anymore. So I kind of wanted to just talk about that process and the strangeness of having dual consciousness, meaning like to know that this is what I'm doing. I'm going through life. I'm learning lessons. I am trying on perspectives in order to see what I can learn from them and utilizing them to inspire me to go forward into a new creation, right? But I'm also a human being. And in order to traverse these things, the perspectives that I'm traversing are human perspectives. Hold on, I get a cough, so one moment. So there are the human ways to feel and to experience such perspectives, which are limited. So it makes you feel this like separation from the wholeness of who, or it makes me feel the separation of from the wholeness of who I am while I'm in the perspective. But because I've practiced this so much now and my awareness has been stretched, expanded enough that I can hold a dual consciousness, so I can be aware of what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I can be aware that I'm just experiencing a human perspective and that it's important for me to experience it and it's valid and real, but it's also not real. It's also just to learn from. It's also like I'm a bigger than this experience, right? So when in terms of dual consciousness, you might think of like Gemini energy, and I do have Gemini energy at my fourth house, at my IC, and so it's the core of who I am. But everyone has Gemini energy, somewhere. And so for some people it'll be more prominent than others, right? So I imagine that does play into how I'm able to navigate on this plane using that dual consciousness. But how helpful is it? So as I'm closing out this cycle, and it, from a human perspective, it was very sad because there was this soul contract that I was working on, and the other party just couldn't face the fears that would have been needed to be faced. Like couldn't go into the human pain that would have had to be felt in order to move through it, because the other party's consciousness wasn't expanded to that degree. There were a lot of coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are the perspectives that we utilize in order to navigate or avoid pain or confusion. But this is also what we're outgrowing as we expand our consciousness. And, he had to navigate a lot of painful things in life. And so a lot of the coping mechanisms, we're not ready to be let go of. Like they were all, it's interesting because in actuality, when we hold on to coping mechanisms, we're also holding on to the pain because the pain is never dealt with if it's sitting in our energy body and we're just like holding on to it while pretending it's not there. That's basically what a coping mechanism is. But if we go forward and through the pain, then the coping mechanism falls away and then we're integrated with the pain, and then we know that we're a being who can handle that kind of pain and we're wiser for it. So, but without knowing that, without seeing that bigger picture, it's totally understandable and very human and very not wrong to hold on to the perspectives and the coping mechanisms and things that we have, that we've been utilizing to survive, because if we are closer to the survival programs, like these things are going to seem like do or die. And since we are also programmed to avoid death, some of our more primal programming says don't die, because if you die, then you can't, grow. You can't you can't learn the things that you came to learn. So it's understandable that these things kind of take over and get really real and serious and stuff. But once you start expanding your consciousness past that and integrating some of those pains, you just kind of see that, like, you can't, yes, you can die from this human form, but your energy lives on, and that this is just an experience that we're having, and it is for learning. And so going through pain and alchemizing pain and integrating pain, from that perspective, just makes sense. It's like, well, that's a beautiful gift to be shown a place where I'm holding on to pain, and that all I have to do is feel and be present with the pain, which, pain is a part of life when you're a human. And the suffering is when we don't think that we can stop the pain. And so we fear that, and so we stay in the way that helps us cope with and avoid feeling the pain, when actually if we went through the pain, there would be no more pain. So it would be integrated into us and it would pass. And so that's why suffering is, Tony Robbins has a quote that pain is a part of life and suffering is optional. And that's why suffering is optional, because we can use our free will to choose to change the patterns, break free from them, go towards the pain and process it. And so the soul contract would have involved two people having to move through a certain level of their pain before they could join up into the experience and experience some things together, and joining the perspectives that they both come from, like joining the wisdom and sharing those kind of downloads and things that you can share once you interact or connect with another being here on Earth who has had a different experience of Earth. So it's really valuable to do so, and it was the plan for myself and another soul, and then the other soul couldn't process. I'm in awe of this other soul. I have great love for this other soul. There's no grudges here. There's no disappointment anymore. But the human side of me had great disappointment, had great fear, blamed herself. Like, there were times where I was just like, why am I not good enough to be chosen? Like, I don't understand. Like, if this is the way it's meant to be, why does this person, like, not do it, like, there's anger and there's disappointment and frustration and self-blame and but really what it did was this beautiful thing where it showed me all the places in me where I was harboring low self-esteem. So the fact that we didn't come together in the soul contract is actually a beautiful thing anyway, because it brought me to a place where, yes, from a human level, it's sad, and I mourned the loss of what could have been and the missed opportunity. But on another level, I know the soul and I have never been apart on a soul level, and that we will not be experiencing this separation from each other for eternity. It's just in this limited Earth experience, and so it's like, well, I need to move on from this experience with this experience on Earth that I've had, and what a beautiful gift I was given, that maybe those were things that I would have worked through within a relating dynamic between me and the other person, me and the other soul, where I would have realized my own worth. But instead, the absence of the soul served the same exact purpose. So it was like a fail-safe, beautiful process, but like from a human perspective, that was devastating, right? And from a soul perspective, wow, that was such an intense throat chakra attack and clearing. So very interesting. So, but from a soul perspective, it was such a beautiful process, because I didn't lose anything from a soul perspective. So as I'm completing this cycle that's ending is a cycle of me from a human perspective working my way out of some of the codependent programming left over from childhood, which modeled to me that I should be in a role to need or want a man in my life. And I couldn't, no matter what I did from my human perspective, not want that. I couldn't stop wanting it. And it was something I was well aware of, and well aware of wanting to move through, and well aware of the limitation of. But it was like it had to come off in layers, and so there were like a lot of aspects that made it up, right, from my experience earlier on, what comprised my downloading of that whole concept was many things from many layers, and really it's a program that exists on Earth, right, for women to be dependent on having a man in their life, or to think that their value comes from a man choosing them, or to think that they get their value and worth reinforced by the fact that a man chooses them, or that they should be willing to be in a certain role of sacrifice and service to a man in order to be thought valuable by them, or any number of excuse me, subtle and not so subtle ways that could limit a person. And so because in this new paradigm of relating, we're actually meant to be free from that. And it doesn't mean we can't join up, and it doesn't mean we can't be in beautiful, wonderful, fulfilling connections with men, from a woman's standpoint, or vice versa, or if we don't identify. I'm not familiar with that whole thing, but I'm respectful of it as an experience that people are having here on Earth. So I'm not speaking to it because I just haven't had the experience, but I'm including it as a possibility for the concept I'm presenting, which is that we can be sovereign beings and still have beautiful relationships with others, but that we are doing it from a place that doesn't require us to have that in order to be whole, in order to feel happy, in order to feel fulfilled in life. And you can notice how relating from that place feels a lot different. It's like, I want to be with you, and I don't need you. Sure, it's nice when you have my back, but I also have my back. There's no power play dynamics. That means when you come together relating with someone, you just have the experience with them. You're not holding them in bondage and expectation and attached to an outcome and manipulating them with your disapproval or approval or pride or expectations and things like that. It's like, no, you're just letting each experience be what it is with another human being. And if you have a level of commitment with that human being, then the commitment is actually that you both commit to growing, to your own self-growth. Because that's when you can commit to spending more time with somebody, is when they're willing to grow from the experiences they have. If you have an experience with somebody and you don't enjoy it, and they're not in a state of growth, then the subsequent experiences that you have with them will likely be from that same standpoint. So why would you continue them? It would be silly to commit to someone who was stuck in a standpoint that was presenting you with a experience repeatedly that you don't enjoy. So it makes sense to me that we feel safe to commit to people who are committed to growth. And I'm committed to growth, and I want to move forward into the paradigm where I'm relating with people who are also committed to their growth. Okay? So I've completed the cycle of codependent relating, power struggle relating, narcissistic relating, empath relating, just that kind of tangled up web of energy vampirism, really. So now, I want to relate from a sovereign standpoint, and even though my knowledge was that for a long time now, my energy wasn't that, because in my human perspective, I still had untangling to do when it came to my expectations around who I needed to be in order to be loved, and how much I needed love and whatnot. It was like, my soul level knew that I didn't need that, but my human couldn't quite get there yet. My human was still tangled up in wanting, needing, and not understanding. So really interesting, and I think the reason why I'm premising all of this in the intro here, and I appreciate if you stayed to listen, is because perhaps these readings that we're about to do, these reflections that I'm about to offer, will have to do with cycles, with fair relating, with the new relating paradigm, and things like that. As you know, most of my readings do kind of center around that kind of wisdom and knowledge, because that's what I've been focused on. So if you find yourself here, maybe you find yourself focused on that too. Okay, so I appreciate your time. Remember that you're only going to use your own intuition to decide if something is helpful for you. Only take it if it's helpful for you and meant for you and feels like a resonance and truth for you. These are reflections, so use your own intuition to decide if one or more has some messages for you to reflect on. This is going to be pick 1, 2, 3, and 4. As far as what these stones are, I don't know, Madagascar something maybe. This is just a glass jar with a watercolor bag in it that I painted. I don't remember. I just don't remember what this is. And if you know, please let me know. This is agate. Okay. So beautiful. And, I want to say that in the soul contract of the relationship that I was utilizing to work through some of my issues with codependency and self-worth, like there were outside influences from a human perspective that didn't approve, that wanted to make it difficult, that maybe even put energy towards the situation of disapproval, and those are energies that are real. But I want to say that even that's perfect. Even that prompted me to learn different things and understand different things and read different subtle energies. And so the other part of that whole thing is like, yes, from a human standpoint, sad, completion, moving on, freedom felt. From a soul perspective, there's this celebration of how far I've come, and not just me. It's like everybody in this situation. It's like the other party. It's like the interfering parties. Like everyone did so good. I'm so honoring of everybody's role in the playing out of what we all did, because I know that we all learned so much, and I know that there's no possible way that we didn't grow from the experiences that we had with each other in response to each other. And if we're looking at relating from a place of non-expectation, then of course that has to also carry through to soul contracts. And so I feel like it's time to eliminate that word from our vocabulary, even soul contracts. It's like, no, there was a possibility for two souls to come together in this way, but instead it went this way, and still the results were beautiful. That's what I have to say about it. And so it's like no one did anything wrong, like every decision that was made because this is an experience that we're fully in control of, and that we have free will and choice. And yes, there are options and possibilities, and we can't get it wrong, So what everybody did, it's like if there's regrets, like let go of the regrets. The regrets are heavy and dense, and they're not even real. They're just from a human perspective, something that needs to be more understood. If there are feelings of failure, it's like, no, there was no failure. I know from a soul level that I am free. I'm more free than I was when I entered the experience. And I'm so thankful for the experience, and I wouldn't trade the experience. And so how can it be wrong? You know what I mean? From a human perspective, sure, I could go into that place where it said, oh, this is wrong, it didn't go right, it went off path, and it should have gone this way. And it's like, well, it didn't go that way. There are reasons it didn't go that way, and resisting what is what puts you in suffering. So why Would you want to make yourself a victim to a situation that played out a certain way? Why not just surrender to the outcome that was and understand that you got gifts and lessons that were so valuable from the experience as it was? So now the experience as it was is perfect. You know, see how much better that feels? And so let's get into these piles and see, you know, what else comes out. All right, let's go. I pick one. All right, let's get into your cards and see what we can see. A message for you to reflect on. You'll survive this. New solutions and beginnings. Inner Earth. I'm just looking at the photo a bit before I lay it down. You've reached a level of inner focus that has now allowed you to see things from a different, new, fresh perspective of more limitless possibilities of wonder and awe of what you did not realize was there all along. That the road that you traveled in order to get to this space, which may have like pushed you and caused you to have to surrender in order to come to this place, it was maybe difficult and painful, and you had to face yourself in a lot of pain, but you did get through it, and now you're in a space of knowing that there's so much more, and knowing that you have depths that have not yet been explored. And I think that there was something dangled for you that looked interesting, so that you would go towards this thing, so that it didn't look all that hard and all that difficult, and it looked like there was a light or many lights at the end of the tunnel. But what you find is that even when you reach that place, there's more. There's more. And it looks like when you explore what there is, the more, better it'll be. New space. You know, it's stuff that you haven't navigated before, so it's going to require different skills and just discovering new things about yourself that you hadn't even considered. I have a lot of cards here, so I don't think they're all going to fit on the screen anyway, but we'll see. So in doing so, you have traversed a path that others may need to traverse for themselves as well as humans. You're an example of having done that. And in doing that, you have planted the idea of possibility in those that could witness you, and those whose footsteps are behind you, and those who are on their own path that see that there is even further to go. That you are letting it be known, you're developing the map, the idea that there's more. Okay. And these are from the soul's perspective, obviously. That you come from a place where these skills and knowledge and knowings that you are now embracing even more so, and have probably been accessing for a while, they come with you to this earth existence from another place, perhaps even Palladian energy. So there is this like brotherhood, sisterhood kind of feeling where it's, you know that we are all one, you know that this is a humanity that is all your brothers and sisters, that is parts of you being reflected back to you. that it matters that we all find our way to where it is that we were meant to go. Things that need to be said: I'm sorry and surrender. So one of the things that could have been experienced is a disapproval from others in your journey, or a leaving behind of others in your journey. Something where it felt like there's an apology needed, and even if it was an apology that needed to be given to you, it's like surrendering the attachment to that. And I'm sorry is sort of a way to use words to bridge an intention of care. And so I'm sorry, would insinuate that we're not allowed to make mistakes, that we have to feel bad for things we've done. And that may not necessarily be a healthy state. It doesn't feel good when you've accessed these higher realms. You understand that being sorry is a kind of a lower vibrational state. So perhaps it's even like surrendering the need to feel sorry. Like doing these things unapologetically is an option, and it doesn't mean that you don't care. You can care without being sorry. There are other ways to express, they're just not commonly done, and maybe they need to be forged. Like I've been trying to use different language, instead of saying, I hope you have a good day, because I understand hope is a vibration below faith. Hope is saying like, I can only hope for this, meaning like it may not be. And from a soul's perspective, I can easily see that if I want to give the vibration of having a good day, then I don't want to give the vibration of hoping to have a good day, because that just offers reasons to hope for it. If I offer in faith that this person could definitely have a good day, I know that that's true energetically, and I also know that from a human perspective, any day could be a good day, even the day that has the most tragedy and the most pain and the most terror. However, it only takes a switch of perspective. So what I've been saying instead is like, may your day be filled with the noticing of all the things that make life worth living. So do you see how it's the same thing as hope you have a nice day, except it's higher vibrational and it's more true, it's more accurate. Okay. So things to do for fun might be travel. There might be a time for travel in your life right now, or you may be in the middle of a time of travel. Travel is significant in some way. So if you're not doing it, it's suggesting perhaps that would be something beneficial to you. You will only see the way by making the way. And I think you know that, right? It was not an easy path, because you may have at times, from a human perspective, not even known you were on a path. Not even known that you were going to a place that there would be something worthwhile or to discover, or that you were going anywhere. It was just like you were being forced and pushed, and it wasn't comfortable, and you had to take leaps and steps and move. And you've actually forged a way, you seeded a blueprint for what's possible, and you see it because you went down it, It's like you lit the way, you made a path, and now there's a way, and now you see that that's what you were doing. So one of the things that could have caused difficulty is the relationship between mother and child, or parents and child, and the way that you were parented may have come up a lot in your movement through and towards where you were going. One moment, I'm going to take a sip of water. You may feel like you need to be really hydrating extra right now too. I've got some nice fresh spring water, and I encode it with love. I used to use glass bottles, but they kept breaking on me, so I went back to using some plastic. I drink these so fast that I feel like any contamination is going to be very minimal in the plastic, so. But I really love and highly recommend spring water, or if you don't have spring water, encode your water is a possibility as well. Okay, so the parenting methods that were ultimately inhibiting you probably became very apparent to you through this process of what you were going through. So you learned a lot about how you were taught to operate and how that affected you ultimately, and what you didn't yet understand about that. Like, there's a lot of shadow here. So it's like, what the challenge was the programming, was the stuff you didn't know about how being parented in certain ways affected you. So, and I also think probably family members, maybe even specifically a sister, was not supportive of you. Or maybe it was the lack of having a sister where you didn't feel supported. You felt really alone on this path, I think. And maybe even your children rejected you and the path that you were on, and that may have been really difficult, and that may be why there's like this feeling of like, I'm sorry, but I had to do it, or whatever. And it's like, well, you're actually teaching your children, and you learn from your parents by the example. And so being an example of someone sovereign who's willing to go towards their destiny is not a bad example to be for your children. And one of the things that was probably difficult is that the old way of relating required you to sacrifice yourself a lot, to give a lot of yourself to, and people were expecting of you when you did, because you operated in that way. And so there was a time that you definitely had to stand your ground, and maybe even now still, in order to keep access to the place where you've reached, where it feels so much more free and expansive, and like there's a lot more to do and learn here. You have to stand your ground, meaning you have to make sure that people understand that this is what you've chosen. And you have to understand that it's okay for you to choose this. It's okay for you to put a boundary up on what kind of treatment and expectations you're willing to accept from others at this point in your journey, knowing what you know now about everything. And specifically about the ways of relating that aren't effective. Alright, these next cards, they all seem to be in reverse. We're going to read them in reverse. Okay. So some of the things that you had to traverse in order to get to this free space that you are, although it may be a bit lonely and you may have had to leave people that you love behind, but you found out where you weren't in your integrity, meaning where you were accepting less than you thought you deserved or were worth, or what was important to you, where you were accepting treatment from others that was less than you'd like to agree to, what the difference between love was and manipulation, coercion, and service and expectation. And you had to learn where you didn't trust yourself. So in places where anxiety rose up and you saw that you weren't willing to take forward action, or you weren't willing to make a decision, you saw that you weren't trusting yourself to do those things in those instances, and maybe even had to trace it back to childhood and why, and what example that you had adopted as a way to operate that was inhibiting you from trusting yourself fully. I think definitely your interactions with siblings has been highlighted in this journey for you. perhaps a separation from even being able to play with them, or be, growing at new things with them. And you may have lost pets in this journey. And there may have been times where people chose others over you in order to have you face uncomfortable feelings of rejection and things like that could have been stemming in childhood as well, when parents showed what seemed like preferential treatment or whatever to a different child. In certain levels, in certain ways of relating that we are outgrowing now in society, you putting children in roles within the family was one of the ways that was utilized as a way to cope with some of the dynamics that were unhealthy. So that's where we see like the golden child and the black sheep and things like that. So there may have been those kind of dynamics in your upbringing and amongst you and your siblings. You've definitely, been alone on this journey. You have maybe not liked that one bit, but in the end I think that you find the purpose in it, the gift in it, in being sovereign. I think you really did have to leave behind most of your childhood, all of your past, like the people that were there, the people that you love. You really did have to go forward without their support. And without being able to continue to support them in the way that you used to. You used your mind to get to where you're going. You used the knowledge and the knowing of the possibility and the understanding of how to make connections and put information together, and use spiritual wisdoms that you understood and that you brought in a very practical way to navigate the limitations that you needed to traverse. You have a high intelligence. You may have even realized that you were hearing messages or getting messages through songs that you would hear, or that people were saying things that seemed like messages to you. You may have heard words to look up, or just started hearing phrases, and you may have even been able to have whole conversations through your clairaudience. When music comes up unexpectedly in your mind, you may have found messages through that. Just getting messages and symbols through your inner sense of hearing is something that you may have been experiencing a lot of. So I think that we had three people in reverse here, and then now we have polyamory in reverse, and next we have release toxic relationships in reverse. And one of the things that could happen is that, say you're trying to adapt to a more spiritual, loving way of relating to others, and knowing that we're all one, and knowing that we shouldn't have expectations or attachment to outcomes, it may have caused you to kind of go in a direction of opening yourself up to being in like relationships where there was more than one party involved, or where there's like group love or something like that, and that may not have worked well for you. You may have even experienced what toxicity existed in entertaining that kind of love. Not that it is toxic to entertain that kind of love, not that it can't be done successfully. Personally, I don't choose it for myself. I have delved into the topic, but not to a degree that I'm a master by any means, just to the degree that I understood that it wasn't for me. But you too may have experienced that, where it was like, okay, it makes sense to be loving and inclusive of all, but it didn't actually look or feel the way that, it would have been effective and healthy. And I think that you may have been able to see some of those dynamics at play. So I don't know if you could see this card here in the corner, but this is an answer card, meaning if you have a question, you can ask it now. You can pause if you need another moment, and we'll look at the answer. And your answer is no. So, depending on what your question was, reflect on what that answer no means to you. So one thing that you've learned about relating to other people is that using your intuition is important. You've learned that, a feeling that you had, or that the intuition that you ignored was right, and that, you really can use your intuition, and that you really have a valuable resource with your intuition, and that the travel, maybe you ended up traveling towards somebody to potentially relate with them, and it didn't feel quite right or something like that. But like, when people are at a distance from you and not right in your energy field, in the proximity of you, you're learning to, or you can still use your intuition to deal with those situations, because it will never lead you wrong. Even if it happens to be your fear that's leading you when you mistook it for your intuition, honoring of your fear is still a worthwhile endeavor. So since we as humans are allowed to make mistakes, it doesn't hurt to go in the direction of whatever it is that you're being urged to, right? So here are some... Well, before we go to the advice cards, let me just get some things from the Oracle bucket, okay? I've added some new energy to the Oracle bucket with the completion of my cycle in life. I just channeled, I don't know, about 50 or so new energies to add to this bucket. I kind of want to clear these away before I add to the bucket, just because it'll be easier. So I'll be right back. Alright. We have 180 days, so a 6-month period of time. False. Trickster. So, maybe you were in a situation, in a relationship, and relating with somebody who was entertaining someone else, that there was more than just you involved, that maybe it was sold to you as something acceptable, something that was ending, something that was okay, and maybe not, but like, whatever it was, your intuition was all along giving you the idea that it wasn't, trustworthy. And it's not wrong that you went against your intuition, possibly to find out the answers, because, ultimately what you learned is that you can trust your intuition, and that's a valuable thing to learn, So there may have been someone manipulating, misleading, and you may have had to go through some sort of grief and ending in that. And it didn't matter how much energy you put towards it, you just couldn't quite get it to come out on a higher plane where you knew the potential existed, because you weren't the only party there. Your intentions may have been pure, your input would have been for the highest good of all, but not all parties were operating on that plane. And so this was valuable for you to learn and understand, to see and feel and taste and touch what that feels like. So yes, there'd be like a grieving process to end that, but also a clearing of a karmic pattern, meaning now you understand that from all angles, you're not going to have to live that out again. You also disanchored all of the energy that was holding it in place in your subconscious. So you gained awareness and shone a light on all the places within you that made you able to participate in those sort of energetic exchanges. Yes, there is victory over this situation. You have completed that cycle, which was very difficult, right? And now it's like you've opened up to this bigger possibility. And so that whole trickster kind of situation could have been going on for a whole 9 to 10 months. But now it's like, or either that, or it could have been the 6 months kind of thing, or even longer it could have been. But these particular time periods could be significant for someone, you know, or it could just be an indication that it's been going on for a while, that it was a process of gestation, and that it couldn't have happened all at once. You needed to have it from all the different angles, from, you know, repeat the cycle all these different times. And so having those time periods show up in the reading is just like a confirmation of that, you know. But there could be something that was gestating, you know, for that. And that whenever this was cut off or ended, you know, it was for a purpose. And maybe it activated you when it was cut off. It activated you in a sadness, in a possibly even a remembrance of a time in childhood when you were also came to the realization that people weren't true, or, you know, people didn't have that Pleiades perspective of love and brotherhood, you know, and that can cause real sadness and an underlying sadness. And especially if you have to go on with life, you can kind of see how it would be effective as a coping mechanism to push it aside, to suppress it or deny it. It could have even ended up developing in an addiction, or an avoidance tactic. But nonetheless, being in that and passing through that and being present with that pain brought you out the other side to the limitless possibilities that exist. So you see now the value in facing pain head on and trusting intuition and understanding a more full, bigger picture of the fact that other people are experimenting and learning from other perspectives, which may not include the unity, brotherhood, and love that you want to embody and bring here on Earth. So what you've done, though, is gone into those dark places where those things exist and made a blueprint for others to get out. The more people who get out, the more people who can get out. You're an example of someone who got out, and it's very valuable, very important, and beautiful, although painful and, you know, hard from a human perspective. A beautiful, valiant, honorable journey nonetheless. Let's see what the advice cards are. Strength. Yes, notice how strong you are. You would not have even maybe appreciated how strong you are without this whole experience, you know? You know that you would get back up every time, no matter what. There was no point, even if you did face suicidal ideation in your journey to here, you do understand the strength, and you understand now that there's nothing that you can't traverse. Growth mindset. Yes, you have learned and fully adopted and been shown that you can trust in the growth mindset, meaning, like, if you know there's a solution, you'll find the solution. If you open yourself up to the idea that you're growing and learning, then there's always a reason to go on. Oh, beautiful. Rejection is protection. Yes, like we said, like when this was cut off, it was protecting you from a situation that you may have persevered and used your strength and growth mindset to stay and endure for longer. But what was recognized is that you already learned everything you could learn from that situation. And maybe your guides or your highest self with the bigger picture view understood that this energy wasn't going to budge. This energy was staying in that pattern, right? This energy wasn't in the growth mindset with you, not at that time. There had to be an ending to what it was that you were experiencing. And look where you are now, you know? Isn't it nice to know that the way it turns out is a beautiful, freeing place where you don't have the karma, you have limitless possibilities, you know you can trust what you're going into, and you know you can get through and learn from and prosper given what you're about to go forth with. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Pick one. It's how beautiful. Remember, this is just information to reflect on. Only take what's helpful for you. Thank you for spending your time with me, and perhaps we'll see you in a future reading. Bye now. Hello, pick two. You chose this glass jar. Look how cute it is. I just like little jars. I read once on a meme that, like, if you're obsessed with jars, it means that you were a witch in another lifetime, and I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We've got your cards. First, we're going to look from that soul level. You've got the love, Hadarian energy, codependency, boundaries. I'm just going to look at the card for a moment and see what I can get from it. I think you're protecting yourself now in some way where you've kind of understood that there's more than one way to look at something. You've looked at something and gone through a lot of cycles of something to see it from a lot of different subtle angles. And each time you cleared an angle and understood it more from that angle, you were kind of raising your vibration around that and understood that you didn't have to keep living it out that way again and again. So from a soul level, you've been one of the people here who were maybe like me that I described in the beginning, who was clearing codependent patterns of relating from Earth, or from your existence on Earth. We got integrate and make room. So, is that my... That must be it. Okay. Integrate and make room. So as you integrated these patterns, everything that you saw from the angles that you saw it from, you made room for a new way of being. So I think, like the theme of a lot of this talk that we've had so far, you are kind of on the team of upgrading the relationship template on Earth for yourself and being an example of doing so for others. The power of love. Learning what love is and what isn't. Learning the difference between power and love. Learning how, power is not really love. Realizing that there's more to life, that you enjoy a lot of things that you hadn't experienced yet, and that you have a lot more to experience. Like, that card is blank, and what it tells me is that I think that you're enjoying the process of integration, of alchemy, of traversing difficult places, of maybe you've even posed it as a game of like seeing how dark it can be and how much love you can kind of enter into a situation. Maybe you're not even sad when people kind of get activated into their shadows or get challenged to look at themselves more deeply. It's just like you are spreading little love bombs that are not to deceive, but to invite people up to their highest good. Thus, one journeys to the stars. So, on this card, we've got the pig flying. Let me see. Where's my camera here? There it is. This down here. It's hard to see. I know that my camera is like on a weird angle. I'm trying it in different places to just see if I can get a... Come on, you can do this. See, that pig is flying. And I feel like you already understand the limitless possibilities that exist. And that maybe you do astrology, right? And maybe you even time some of the things that you do in life according to the cycles and transits of what is in your chart and in the chart of the collective. You may even look at the chart of the locations that you're going to and things like that. I think that you're a kind, gentle, loving soul. Rabbits may be significant to you. I think that you spread love and kindness wherever you go. And that maybe you even need to retreat at times. And look away from some of the things that are being experienced by the collective. That you go to nature to kind of recharge and to be reminded of who you really are. Oh, look at the next card is Illusion, Dragonfly. You know who you really are. Yeah. Because you do know who you really are. It's just that you know that you're also having a human experience here. And you know that you dip into this illusion of separation and difficulty at times, but ultimately you are someone who can really fly above that and see from a soul's level what it is that you're doing, what's going on, why you're doing it, and that you're doing it as a way of integrating and alchemizing things that are dense, things that are not love, things that are an illusion about, needing power or taking power or being victimized or needing a savior and things like that. It's just like you are not needing any of those things because you just know yourself to be love. You know that you are the savior. You are the victim when you want to be. When you want to look at something from that perspective, you can. It's a choice. Yeah. Interesting. This card is in reverse and it's about protection and shield, and it's like you don't have war on the mind. You don't have war in your program. You know about it. You understand it. You're just not going to vibrate in a place where power struggles exist. So it reminds me of Byron Katie, if you've ever heard her talk about the time that she got held at gunpoint. And she basically, her heart was open, so she didn't fight against it or anything. She just opened her heart to understand the person with the gun. And this softened him, and she did not get shot. She did not get killed. So I feel like you are someone who understands the power of that, of having an open heart in the face of anything. That we don't resist it. We don't use power or the illusion of power, that we just integrate. We just know that this is a part of our experience for a reason. Welcome it in. See what we can learn from it. Love even that. Love even that. And I think that things of like, on a shallow level, things that a lot of us can get distracted by when we're in the human experience, like shiny things, like reputation, like fine dining, like glitter, like indulging our senses and status and things like that. Those are just ultimately, maybe you try them out, maybe you even do enjoy a certain level of luxury, but it's not something that's required for you to enjoy life. I don't think that you focus on or base any of your decisions on things like that. That the realm that you're dealing in is much more depth and much more bigger picture view, much more encompassing of all that is you. And in your experience, those things are not the things that have enriched your life or made you feel whole. Those are just experiences that you're allowed to have when you choose them, you know. So if you wanted to use, you know, some fine dining techniques to prepare your food, I think you certainly would, and it wouldn't be a bad thing to do. It's just that doing it for power or control or to give a certain image or whatever like that is not part of what you're doing. You know, that would have been something that was done maybe in an earlier part of your life or a past life, but it was like that's where codependency comes from, right? Like needing somebody else to think of us in a certain way, to see us in a certain way, to respond to us in a certain way. And some of those tactics were used because those things can also distract us from our pain. Whereas you're willing to go into your pain. You're not going to use those things to distract you from your pain. Nor are you going to go to battle to distract yourself from your pain. You're going to integrate it. You're going to encompass and allow and welcome in any aspect of you that you're presented with that seems to need your love. Maybe you're even like, so we have this ruthless card in such contrast to kindness, right? Ruthless, I look at ruthless as being like willing to go the distance without worrying about the qualms of what falls away or what is disturbed by it. And it may be that you use that kind of energy in order to integrate, in order to like bring... It's like you would be kind in a ruthless manner, meaning nothing is going to keep you from applying kindness. Nothing, no judgment, no risk to yourself, nothing. And nothing is going to keep you from owning and being with and integrating any painful experiences. You will take it in ruthlessly. Like nothing, some other person's shock or awe or the fact that they wouldn't resonate with you anymore. No, none of that is going to play in. You are so devoted to spirit. You are so devoted to love. You are so devoted to your path of spirituality and integration and just being free of any limiting programming that you will put that above. You just have the understanding and the awareness that allows you to know that that's the right thing to do. Yeah, you have formed the habits that it takes in order to make this true for yourself, you know? Like, for instance, like when I go into an activated energy that is not free, right? That makes me feel like I'm limited, or like my heart's closed, or like I'm in a judgment, or fear, or a doubt. I automatically have it set up in my habit that I would recognize that as, oh, something to understand or work through or integrate. And I think you too have come to the point where it's just part of your habit, your daily life, where you understand that this is what you're going to do. It's part of your operating system now. And I think that every day, everything you see, every symbol, every letter, every song, every interaction with spirit, with people, with transformation, reinforces for you the idea that you are loved. That everything is part of you, that everything is reflecting you, that you are a part of everything. And that you know where to go by looking at the feedback that you encounter in life, because you are in communion with life. You are in a beautiful dance of of navigation, allowance, learning, loving, and being transformed, and also being an example of being transformed, and leaving clues and understandings and little pieces of evidence that you're doing this, but also leaving behind what isn't part of you anymore, what isn't needed for your journey forward. And I think that as you're doing this, the abundance that you're experiencing is just multiplying and multiplying. It's like once you don't care so much about the shiny things are in abundance around you. They're just, because life is reflecting you and you are reflecting life, so there's just more and more to notice and to allow that is beautiful into your experience. I think you fully trust your intuition. I think you know that your intuition, trusting your intuition, is what got you here. That you can easily feel when something doesn't feel in alignment. Like, that's how you know that you're going to be integrating or allowing something. Now, there's an answer card here, so if you'd like to ask a question, of course your intuition will probably guide you anyway to what question it is that you might want to ask, and we will give you the answer with this card. So pause if you need another moment, but the answer is something is hidden. Okay, so you may have asked about something that you don't fully understand yet, or you haven't fully come to the biggest awareness of yet, and it's just because that's still unfolding for you. Nothing's gone wrong, as you know. This is just kind of a confirmation that, yeah, there is more to know about that. Yeah, you're right. You don't have the fullest understanding of it yet. There's more. Just like your intuition told you. And when you are relating to other people in this highest timeline paradigm, do you agree to being treated this way and act accordingly? I think that you do take into consideration the experiences that you're having with people and whether or not you want to continue them, and you're acting accordingly. And like, you're a beautiful example of that. It's like, yes, some people are not on the growth trajectory that you're on. Some people are not going to jive well with your energy. Some people are meant to be in your experience for a moment. And some people can continue having experiences with you, but it's all based on what you agree to and what they agree to. And you act accordingly to that. And that's a beautiful way to be, because it doesn't hold people in expectation and bondage and attached to the outcome. And being attached to an outcome that doesn't come to be can cause us to be in balance. So this allows you to stay in balance no matter what it is, and also curious about what it is that you're experiencing with others. So it's like, I'm not expecting and I'm not attached to an outcome, so what is this experience I'm having? Do I agree to being treated this way? And see and go into the experience with that perspective, the curiosity of a child entering a new experience, because people can grow and learn, and in the time that we spend apart from them, they could have grown and learned. So it is a beautiful thing if we can allow people's experiences to impress upon us, instead of expecting that they will always be in the place that they were where we last left them. So on the one hand, if somebody is plainly in a pattern that is not enjoyable to us, yes, it makes sense to create distance. But if we've gone away from somebody for a period of time that would have allowed them to grow and learn, and we don't know, our intuition is saying, let's give this another go, then we might go into the experience with curiosity instead of expectation that it would be how it was. So you see how it's like this whole navigation system of how to operate with freedom and no bondage, and just this wonderful understanding that we are fully in control of our own experience and how we handle ourselves, and that we can use our kindness and our discernment and our curiosity and our allowing to just navigate life in a way that does not need power, does not need power over others, does not need people to respond to us in a certain way or make us valuable to them in any way, or does not need anyone to recognize anything particular about us. That we can just recognize what we need to recognize in ourselves for our own growth and learning, and it's not dependent on others. That what we do with our energy is we go into relationships to give, not to get. So we give from our overflow of our already filled up cup, and it's like you give your kindness. You're not expected to do it, and this is, you do this because this is who you are. This is what you are. You are love, and there's no power struggles required. It's just this kind being, this kind being that you are is brought to each experience. So I'm going to pause and clear these and just take some from the Oracle bucket before we go on to some advice cards. So while I was kind of shuffling the bucket, I got this feeling that I wanted to do Palo Santo, and I thought, oh, why don't I just wait until this one's over? And then it was just like, no, do it now. So I'm just lighting the Palo Santo now. We're going to clear a little bit. There must be something else here. That we want to clear. I'm just going to clear the other stacks of cards that I've already got over there. Alright. Beautiful. Thank you. Wonderful. I love Palo Santo so much, and I do buy it from a sustainable source. I found it on Amazon. If you're interested in the information on where I get my Palo Santo, just let me know in a message or a comment. Okay, so we got acknowledge, apply effort. Okay, so you're kind of in this easy breezy space of understanding things and having completed a lot of things. Let's celebrate how far you've come. And now you are entering into this period of time where you will be taking action or applying effort towards an inspiration that you're going to have, or an activation that you will be entered into, and you will need to acknowledge. So it's something where it's gotten really big in order for you to notice it. Because I think that you stay balanced pretty well, and maybe some of the other things that need to be cleared or need to be integrated haven't come to your awareness yet, because the coping mechanisms that you have are working very well, and they keep you very well balanced, and you're very strong and adept at coping in those manners, and it's nothing is putting you in war so that you notice. So this has actually been something where it's just getting louder and bigger for you right now, so that you can notice it, and you can you probably have seen that something has has kind of grown, and that you've had to apply your growth mindset to deal with it. It's like, okay, there's a solution here. Okay, look for the solution, look for the solution, and you've been having to look for a lot of solutions. We got the energy of Aphrodite and then mystery. Interesting. Okay. So there's a little bit more digging to be done. We saw the answer card that you got was something is hidden. So, you know, acknowledge that something, you don't have all the information yet, right? And even this reading is not giving you all the information. It's saying, yeah, there's more. But it's like, it's something more that you want to realize, that you want to dig for, that the act of looking for this, knowing that it's for your benefit, knowing that any effort you apply is going to be beneficial to you, knowing that there is a solution to whatever it is that you're facing and looking at, is going to be beneficial to you and is part of the process of this. But I also see Aphrodite energy. So if you look at the mythology of Aphrodite, some of the things that she does is, you know, she has the energy of love, but also lust. Lust was kind of tied in with Aphrodite and one of the curses that was put on her. And so there may be something to sort out with lust when it comes to Aphrodite, and maybe even some of those more shallow ways of living. And it's like, is there a place where you've still been counting on the outside attention of the opposite sex? You know, is there some sort of way that your energy is still being utilized and used, maybe from the subconscious level? And what's coming to me now is like that idea that we women need to enhance ourselves and be really beautiful and be really alluring and be really seductive. And some of those tactics may have been built into our foundation by what it was that we witnessed. And perhaps it's like also causing some mistrust with men who are opening up to their feelings and their intuition and realizing that something seems off. And so maybe it's up to some of us to now balance out the energy of seduction and sensuality, and like having used that, maybe not consciously, but maybe like left over in the subconscious of like times from Aphrodite's energy, of when that was used as a means of power and control. And this is very interesting. As I'm saying all this stuff, I'm really kind of taking it in myself, because I'm just like, okay, these are definitely energies that I've spent some time focused on dealing with and trying to untangle as well. So very interesting here. Let's see what else. Yeah, there's a truth to be realized still that has not been realized yet. And it's something about something was spoken into existence. Oh, sorry if I flashed you. Let me just do that again to see. Okay, no. Couldn't see much. Something was spoken into existence, and it is a cleared timeline. Alright, so it's something that you already learned is now going to be applied to this situation. Okay. So nothing's gone wrong here. You learned something on another timeline, a truth, and now it's going to be applied to this situation. Alright, this is interesting. Oh, okay, so the ability to create a new story. So let's tell a new story about what Aphrodite's energy is for and what it can do. We've got swindle. Isn't that interesting? Maybe I would have to look at the mythology of Aphrodite and see what kind of lies were weaved into that whole kind of scenario. But there's something where, yeah, people were coerced or swindled, or like, you know what came to mind just now? There was a man that I encountered in my travels when I used to go out with my ex to like karaoke and open mic and things. There was a man who, he liked women, and he would, you could tell that he was a flirt, and he was trying to be charming towards women by giving them compliments and things like that. But one time he revealed that he was using pheromones, that he had a company where he ordered pheromones, and that he would apply pheromones to himself before he would go out. And I mean, I just at the time was just like, whoa. Like, I just felt like that is so, like, whoa. Like, I felt like that's not right, you know, in a way. To me, it was like so a low vibrating way to like lure somebody, you know. It was like, yeah, I don't know, like, but of course I also wasn't judging, and I was just like observing, but to me it was like, gosh, I don't want to be lured to somebody by pheromones or like a love spell, or, you know, things like that to me were a real turnoff and a real like no as far as like my own experiences. And because I want to respect people as sovereign. I want them to make their own choices, and I certainly don't want to lure somebody to me on the premise that like I had to do something to trick them into it. It's like, no, like the ultimate flattery for me was that they would be attracted to me for me. You know, and now looking at this idea that they could be attracted to me because of subconscious programming that was programmed to lure them in from other lifetimes or earlier on in this lifetime, I'm just like, eek, you know? Dang. Like, no wonder I could often attract men who were not honest, because my energy wasn't matching who my conscious effort was. So that would have presented some sort of mystery to them. Like, why doesn't it look like it matches up, or something like that, right? And very interesting. And so it could have even presented as a magnetism to some men. And it makes sense when I'm looking back, like so many times when I was out there in the public dealing with like people in a social sense out on bars and, you know, for karaoke and things like that, that men would kind of get the wrong impression from me. Like, a lot of men thought that I was flirting with them when I was just being nice. And, you know, I was just confused by it, because I thought, well, I just don't understand what to do. Like, I'm even having tears come to my eyes when I remember and think, like, I didn't want to lead anyone on, because I don't think that's right. And I do really love everyone. I do really like everyone. I do really think everyone's worthwhile, and I do care about everyone. But I wasn't sexually attracted to everybody. I wasn't like desperate or anything. Like, I'm very particular about who I'm attracted to. And probably a lot of my programming dictated who I was attracted to back then. You know, it was probably mostly men who wouldn't honor me, and who didn't want to invest and were afraid to commit. Like me, like what I was doing to me. I wasn't honoring me. I was afraid to commit to anything, and, you know, I was accepting less than I was worth. So, of course, I had to only be attracted to men who would give me less than I was worth. You know, that's how it went for me. But, like, that was my own programming that I had to untangle. So this is a very interesting concept we're dipping into now, which is that, you know, some of the love energy built in was there probably on a bigger picture view in this lifetime, so that there would be an attraction to situations that would be codependent and would require boundaries and things like that, because all of these angles need to be cleaned up, right? Like, we're clearing our karma from Aphrodite. So whatever Aphrodite had experienced and perpetuated in the energies of the all, of the collective, now has to be understood and cleaned up. So if one of those energies is to lure men in under false pretenses of like sexual prowess, or, you know, the equivalent of pheromones, you know, maybe the energy has been set up in the subconscious to create pheromones and create a magnetism. So that would be, you know, definitely a block to fair relating that we're trying to step into, where everybody gets to be sovereign. So wow, this is like so amazing right now for me to like be realizing all of this. So look, understood. Oh my gosh, you know, I have a energy in here that says understand, which would indicate that something needs to be understood. And this is saying it's understood. Like, I believe that what we just talked about is understood. And it's creating a mystery. And mystery can be part of something that's alluring to men, right? And so this is what we're healing now. We're healing because we've understood the truth of it. And we're seeing it now as a weakness. There was a weakness there. That was like a Achilles' energy is like, Achilles' heel was the weakness of Achilles, but other than that, Achilles was indestructible. And I think we've seen in this reading that you really are in balance and of good intention and able to integrate, and now there's like this realization where effort needs to be applied towards a weakness that's been identified. And I'm going to say, since manifesting generator is in here, that we can just speak into existence the inclination and intention for what is preferred given the realization of this weakness. And I would say that, you decide for you what is right for you, but I'm going to declare and put into my energetic field at this point that I clear and free any false pretense of what my energy may desire or try to elicit from men in the way of attraction and sexual magnetism, that I free any man who may be under the influence of some false energy, of some ill-intended, misplaced intention of attraction, and that I neutralize any of the intentions that may be in the subconscious, in my subconscious, that lend towards making myself more attractive to the opposite sex, that I understand that I am free to encounter people on a even, balanced, fair way that does not require me to entice them, that they can see me for who I am in my full authenticity, in my full, real, raw state, and whether that is attractive to them or not, it would be their choice, their ability to navigate their own energy and decide for them their own selves without the undue, unfair influence of my energetic intention. And so it is through this lifetime and all lifetimes. I declare and free myself and all others who may have been tangled in this particular misunderstanding. So the news story is that we were late on a fair level. Wow, very interesting. So, in order for me to do that, I first had to accept it was true, right? And look, oh my gosh, I love, these were just sitting in my hand while I said all that. And now the news story includes freedom, right? Wow, so beautiful. I love it, love it, love it, love it. I feel so nice right now. Okay, so let me know what you think about all of that and what kind of perspectives you have to share about the unfolding of this, and what angle you might be taking up to understand about Aphrodite energy if it isn't the one that I just talked about. Oh wow, look at this. Mars and Moon are the advice cards. And Moon, of course, is feminine energy and Mars is masculine energy. And so it's like balance out these energies. Yeah, and it's like Aphrodite was more utilizing the Moon energy, right? And was really like causing that magnetism. And so also thereby attracting men or masculine energy, towards her, when in order to attract a more balanced mate, there would have to be a balance in this energy inside of me, inside of you. So the advice is to keep these energies balanced. Wow, how beautiful. And it doesn't mean that a certain level of mystery is bad. It's like a natural mystery. It's like, of course you're going to be a mystery to anyone who hasn't asked a question or tried to put effort towards understanding you. And it's okay to take action, right? It's like what you are inspired to take action on is yours to take action on. And it means like making yourself more attractive in a way that you're inspired to do, not an energetic spell, that has to like make you the fairest one of all. Oh my gosh, right? Like, that goes back to those times when Lilith threw the apple in the party addressed to the most beautiful one. And then this, like, competition between Aphrodite and Hera, and there was another one, ensued, where the most beautiful one was going to be most valued, and even the gods didn't want to get involved in, like, judging that, right? And they actually nominated a very young energy and young masculine to make the decision. I think Zeus and those guys knew better than to tangle with that. So it's like, this is like eliminating that karma, you know, eliminating that karma, and you're one of the people who have come to ensure that we don't participate in that any longer, that we don't perpetuate the old way where someone needed to be more beautiful than another. Because beauty really is something that is unique, and we don't want to all look the same. And sure, there is this, like, asymmetrical thing that can happen with the features that will cause somebody to be more widely seen as attractive to many. But how do we know that that's not actually some of Aphrodite's spell work, right? And perhaps that part of what we're doing here is dispelling the myth around what beauty is. Wow. Really, really beautiful. I really appreciate you being here. Remember, this is just information to reflect on, so only take it if it's helpful for you. And perhaps we'll see you in another reading. Bye now. Hi, pick 3. Okay, here's your choice. Let's look at what we have here. From a soul perspective, we have the card that says, I'm sorry, defenselessness, writing past wrongs, uprooting. So I think from a soul level that the things that you came into experience in this lifetime were some things that maybe you were on the receiving end of something you had done in another lifetime, you know? And it's like you got to see the other side, the effects of what certain behaviors and certain choices can do to others, and what it feels like from another perspective. And this is something that, you know, it may have, to hear that might feel really sad and bad, like, you know, because maybe you felt like you were quite a victim in this lifetime to a lot of things that were very difficult, very hard to traverse. And it doesn't make you feel better to feel like, oh, you did that to someone else in another lifetime. I'm sure that does not feel good at all. But from a soul perspective, none of it's wrong. It's just a study on perspective. It's just a study to understand how energy works. It's like, if you fully understand an energy, then when you make the choices, you can use your free will to use it how you best decide that it should go. And there's a grasshopper that landed on my screen door just now. So I really love that. Because a grasshopper, you know, he just took a leap to come here to this door and to greet me. Hi. Hi, grasshopper. You're cute. And so it might be a leap in consciousness for me to ask you to say that these things were, you know, from a higher soul perspective, just for you to learn from. Because there may still be pain associated with what you've been through, okay? So I want to just acknowledge that, okay? But that is what's going on here, is that, you know, you just wanted to understand more so you could care more about the way you make choices and how it affects other people. And in another lifetime, maybe you just hadn't had the experience enough to understand why compassion is important and valuable. You know, what you've been experiencing is the perspective of feeling like you are not loved, like not knowing who you are, of feeling separated from who you are and love. And so that is a very painful perspective to experience at times. So If you can kind of jump up here to this soul level to experience it from a different perspective for a moment, it might feel a little better. The other thing I'm going to do is actually just kind of grab a spirit totem message from the grasshopper from this site that I like to use. When I pull it up, I'll tell you the website address. It's spirit-animals.com. And we're asking for a message from Grasshopper, and he just hopped away. And Grasshopper, it'll give like one of 4 custom messages. That's why I like this site. It says, adventure awaits you. Take that leap you have been considering. It's a leap of faith, similar to the black horse. The grasshopper meaning insists that you must go ahead and do it. You do not have to know the outcome. So you've learned that there will be consequences to what you do. And that's enough, right? It's like, okay, I don't know how to feel. Yeah, because you're stepping into a new space. You don't know what it's going to be like, but you can go into it with the understanding that it'll be different. Things are going to change pretty quickly here when you make this move. And also that you can just go by being curious. You know, maybe you have something to do here to make it up to a soul in this lifetime. Like maybe there have been other lifetimes where you didn't quite get the full understanding of what you needed to do, and in this lifetime you are going to complete this, and it does involve expressing how you feel to another soul. Okay? And maybe you don't know how to feel, so how are you going to express it? Well, go and say that, you know? Like this leap that you're being pushed towards, you haven't taken it yet only because you don't know exactly who you are. But maybe you're going to find out as you go through this. And because you're stepping into such chaos at this point where you don't know what to expect, something that could help you is to organize an area. So like organize your car, organize your bathroom, like clean out a closet, you know, put something into order so that you kind of just have that feeling of a safe space, a secure space, of knowing things that you can control. I am a galactic starseed blooming. Yes, that's what you're learning right now. You're learning who you are. And what you're going to realize is that, you know, you have a higher consciousness. And that it's just starting to be understood and known by you. And the level of density that you've been living in up to this point has kept you from knowing it. I'm just feeling like tears come to the back of my eyes. Let's celebrate how far you've come. First of all, you survived all that you survived. It was a difficult endeavor, no doubt. And you've been poked and pricked, and now it's time to, amidst all of that, grow and bloom, which, you know, a seed starts out in the soil, and it's hard to push itself through, but it does, and then it gets watered, you know, and then it gets beat on by the sun, and then eventually there's like the fruits of its labor, right? The bloom. And so you're coming to the point where you can actually experience some bloom. Your great wave awaits. So all of this is contingent on you making that forward movement, right? So here's another card that's coming out. So we have the top, which is change. We have that grasshopper hop on the screen here as a message of like taking that leap of faith. And now your great wave awaits you, meaning you will be carried to another place, another perspective, a place where you are blooming and being who you really are. Based on this, you know that it's internally being pushed. You're being pushed, you're being invited, you're being picked up by this feeling, this notion, this understanding that something's got to give, something's got to change. We got magic of nature, and so all things are connected. So that grasshopper hopping on my screen right at the time that we're doing this reading was no mistake. Like, you're part of nature, I'm part of nature, that grasshopper's part of nature. We're all working together to, kind of like build this puzzle, to understand things from a different level, to evolve our consciousness and our being and our way of life, and get free of things that, make us feel bad and make us perpetuate war and division. The things that don't let us know that we are love, the things that veil us from understanding that we are love, that's what we're moving away from. And you're part of that. And the next thing we have is lighten up, joy, the hummingbird. So hummingbirds might be another sign and symbol for you. If you see a hummingbird right after or near the time of this reading, then know that that's a message for you. Also, dragonflies are fairies, But lighten up is like the thing you're worried about. It's not gonna be that bad. Your worry is a prayer for what you don't want, first of all. But it's also never going to be like that worry. Like, imagine the worst possible outcome. It's not going to be that. Imagine the best possible outcome. It's probably not going to be that either. And if you can understand that both of those possibilities exist in extreme, you're probably going to fall somewhere in the middle of those. And it's like, lighten up, because this is who you are. You are love, and where you land, it's going to be someplace beautiful and safe where you are able to bloom, and that you can you can organize the chaos that ensues. Like, you will be able to manage. You have been prepared. You understand this very well, and it's okay if you don't know how to feel. Because you're probably experiencing a lot of feelings, and none of them are supposed to be consistent. Like, humans navigate through feelings like on a wheel. It's like, okay, well, feel that. Let yourself feel it for a moment, and then maybe it'll change in a minute. And then let yourself feel that. And I understand that you don't want to make decisions based on the way you feel because of that, because you're feeling a lot of things. That's okay. Your feelings are going to catch up to you and balance out eventually. It's probably because you have not been feeling them, that they're coming up here in an overwhelming rate, and that you don't feel like you can sit with any particular feeling for long. That's okay. It's all okay. It's like, it sounds like whatever you're going to do to interact with another being here to make things right is going to set you off into a clearer understanding, because you won't be veiled by karma anymore. And it's just a matter of being honest. Like, you don't have to manipulate or be attached to an outcome. It's just like expressing who you are and being confident in that, even if what you're confident in is that you don't know how to feel. It's okay. Feeling doesn't have to be known. It just has to be felt. We don't have to settle on a feeling and know that's the right way to feel. What we feel is the right way to feel. And holy shit, I swear to you, and I know I won't be able to catch it on camera, but there is a hummingbird outside right now on the tree. Oh my gosh, I just love life. I love that I'm a part of nature. I love that everything that's happening is happening for me, that nature has me covered, has my back, and that, I can speak my experience into existence. It's just so freaking gorgeous. I mean, how can you take it so seriously, right? It's like, how can you take it so seriously? Lighten up. It's going to be okay. It seems really serious. It seems really scary. And that's because maybe you've been using your logical mind to figure out how to feel. No, don't do that anymore. Just be a person who feels. Feel what comes up to feel. It's not going to stay consistent. It's not. You've probably got a backlog to go through at this point. And then once you get through that, maybe then you'll experience some equilibrium. But right now, there's going to be so much change that you're going to want to let yourself feel all the things. Your foundation has crumbled. You may not even know that you can trust your bank account and your income, and things are all up in the air. Maybe you lost your job or something's changing about your job. That's part of this. You've been uprooted. You've been forced to do something different than you've been doing, and this is the time for you to do it. And maybe this is what you're thinking when I say that you're seeing the other side of something from another lifetime. It's not that you're being punished. Okay, you will come out on top. You know the skills that you used to get to the place that you were. You still have all those skills. You're taking a leap of faith with the skills that you've already integrated and the wisdom you've already gained. You're not starting from nothing. You're starting from wisdom where you go. But also a bigger awareness, knowing that you're not stuck feeling one way. I think that you're really used to being in control, that you stay in the parameters of what you know, that you interact with the people that you know are going to react certain ways, that are predictable, right? That you are the boss, that you may be suffering from a bit of pride, and you may be very cutting in order to protect yourself at times, right? You may use language as a barrier to keep yourself safe from other people, integrating your heart and causing you to feel things that you don't want to feel. And this may have worked for you up till now, but this is not going to work anymore. You are being required to lighten up, which means the coping mechanisms that you've adopted to navigate through life, the illusion of being in control of anything is gone. You don't have it. You organize an area, that's how much control you have now. That can be scary, right? That, of course you don't know how to feel. That feels scary. And you don't want to feel scared because you like to be in control, so you don't have to feel scared. Well, guess what? Now it's time to feel fear. Now it's time to feel like a victim. And you don't have to stay in those feelings. Like I said, you're going to move through them, right? Like after you're done feeling like a victim, then you're going to go, okay, well, what can I do with where I'm at? Now I see things a little bit differently. Like maybe I wouldn't be so mean and cutting to everybody I encounter, because now I realize I burnt some bridges along the way. Oops, ouch. It's like, this is all here to help you. This is all here to guide you. And any bridge that you think you've burned, it doesn't mean that you can't go back and say, I'm sorry. Like, I see that I was kind of cutting and I was kind of uncaring. And I didn't understand fully what that meant or how that might have felt to you. And I was really just kind of coping and trying to avoid feeling certain things that, I would have had to feel if I wasn't that way to you. And it's like being authentic, being human. You're human. You're allowed to make mistakes. And one of the things that you have maybe learned in childhood is that, making mistakes is risky, because if you're punished for making a mistake, then it's like, why would you want to make mistakes? If you're humiliated or made fun of for making mistakes, then you might try to develop coping mechanisms to avoid doing that, and you may even be in denial when you make a mistake because of that. But actually, making mistakes is part of life. It's part of growing and learning and being human. So allowing yourself the permission to make the mistakes that you made, making them okay, lightening up about them, and being willing to make more mistakes. You're going to proceed with a certain feeling you have, and then that feeling's going to change, and you're going to maybe perceive that you made a mistake, but you didn't. It's okay to change. Change is a part of life. Okay, so embracing the mystery. You can embrace all of this newness by looking at things like you're a detective, like you're curious, like there's more to know, like nothing's gone wrong here. It's just that you're discovering a whole new level of life and what is available to you. And maybe you kind of feel uninspired to go forward with solutions, like you're just kind of trying to hold on to things and trying to like survive and like be okay from day to day, and all of your coping mechanisms are crumbled, or most of them, so these feelings are kind of flooding you. You don't have the answers. You don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. You don't even know if you can feed yourself today. And it's like that. How can you come to a space of understanding there's a solution for this if you're in the midst of all that? That's totally understandable and normal. So you may be feeling not, inspired, or not, able to even pay your bills and not even able to like come up with an idea of what you would do to solve this situation. And what I would say to that is that, you know, because you developed coping mechanisms to avoid feeling vulnerable, you decided to control things and be cutting and prideful as a way to cope with life. Because of that, you've potentially never allowed yourself to feel vulnerable. You never allowed yourself to feel like a victim, never allowed yourself to worry about not being able to pay your bills, never allowed yourself to worry about not knowing what to do, and never allowed yourself to feel vulnerable. So the reason this is happening is so that you can feel those things, because those are human ways to feel, and it's important for you to feel them. And feeling those is going to build character for you. You will be a much more enjoyable, whole, happy person to be around and to live within your own body with, once you allow these feelings. And like I said, these feelings aren't going to stay, but don't feel them knowing that you're feeling them so they leave. Feel them because they're part of you and you're a human. They're part of the experience that you've had as a human. You can't deny or suppress them anymore. You can't pretend they're not there. You can't control things to the degree that you ignore them anymore. Things are going to keep happening, so you might as well surrender to the idea that you're going to feel some shit. You're going to feel it, and then you're going to get lighter, and you're going to feel it, and you're going to get lighter, and you're going to feel it, and you're going to get lighter. And think of all the time you stayed in the coping mechanisms of control, and those are all the things you're now going to feel. So it's going to take that long, you know, and give yourself that time. And there's no rush. There's no like, you know, you're just going to get good at doing this. Just like you got good at doing it the other way, now you're going to get good at doing it this way. And this is the much more free, light, whole way, which allows you to be more true to who you really are. Okay? It's going to be okay. I promise you. This is scary, I know. But this is part of what your soul wanted to do. You are trying to see something, learn something. It's very deep. It's very important. It's very beautiful. You are a brave, courageous, strong, resilient, wonderful soul who is doing something very hard right now. Okay? And here's a second card that's talking about organization. This one says organization, moving quickly, pregnancy. So organize what you can, right? Like take it a little bit at a time. It says a space here or an area. It's because like there's going to be something that you can like grab onto that says, okay, at least I can do this. It's like, okay, well, if you're having to move, right, and you have to move out like on a dime and you don't have any income and you're just going to take your suitcase, it's like, well, organize your suitcase. Don't just throw everything in willy-nilly and not caring. No, put your shoes in this section and put your toothpaste over here and you know, organize what you can. Take it one step at a time. And understand that what you're doing is stepping into the place where you can birth something new. A new life is being birthed from you. So, you know, maybe look at yourself like a teenager who just found out you're pregnant. And you're like, holy shit, my life has just changed. I can't go back. This is what it is now. Now I'm going to have 9 months of adjusting and getting prepared for living my life in a different way. And that's what's happening to you now. Right now. That's what you're doing. You're birthing a new life for yourself, which is a much more whole, true to you way of being. But that everything that you've gone through and done up to this point is not for nothing. It will be utilized through the wisdom you've gained from living that way and from being that way. And you'll probably be living with a lot, you know, bigger level of compassion for others who have gone through that or have been the subject of people who have coped in those ways as well. So where you've felt like the effects of an unhappy family life, that's going to be changing, you know. You may realize and recognize that some of the ways that you picked up to cope were to cope with an unhappy family, or so that the family wouldn't be unhappy with you. There may be family members who are unhappy because you're doing this, because the change has been made. And you have to understand that you are still the boss. You are still the one in control, but you're in a control of navigating yourself through a chaotic time. You can't be worried about what other people think, and you can't be depending on them to approve. That's the time for that has passed. They're probably stuck in their own stuff. And anyone who's expecting of you or attached to an outcome with you is relating in the old paradigm, which is literally falling away and that you are graduating out of right now. So that's not going to work. And yes, there will be people beside you who are unhappy with what changes are happening. Okay, you are linking with spirit, right? Like, and there may be even another person that you are actually going to be linking with, and it may be a guide from the other side, your highest self, or a person here on the 3D earth that seems really etheric and spiritual. You may find a mentor or something like that. The first and most important step when you're connecting and communicating with spirit is to create a solid and clear link. So, you know how the synchronicity happened where I talked about the hummingbird and how it may be a sign for you if you see a hummingbird right after this message, and then I saw a hummingbird right outside my door across the driveway in a tree. Like, that was a sign to me that I'm connected to spirit, that I'm reading energy here, and that what I'm reading and feeling is true. Because that's how spirit will show me that I'm on track. It will just, like, the thing I speak comes into existence, you know? It's like, okay, how can you deny that? You know, I'm sure once you can, like, shrug it off to a coincidence, but what if it happens all day, every day? You know, what if you can't stop noticing this kind of stuff happening? You're gonna understand that you are connected to spirit. And so, you know, you may want to, like, take that into consideration here, is that you are being guided, you are being shown, you're not alone, you may feel it, you're in new territory, and you're not meant to fully depend on, you know, others, because I know that wouldn't be your style anyway, but right now you can. There's a higher version of yourself that has a bigger picture view that can help you, that will guide you, and that will be giving you signs and symbols along the way. And so the more that you pay attention to those, like, say if I saw that hummingbird but I just didn't pay attention to it and I looked away and I just said whatever, you know, the more times I do that, the less linked with spirit I feel, the less connected to spirit I feel, and the less spirit will try to give me those signs, because it's pointless, right? But the more you notice it, the more you allow yourself to see it and feel it and know it, the more connected you will feel. Okay? Oh, look at this. You got soul tied. So yeah, you're absolutely tied to another person in this life, in this lifetime. There is another person that you're trying to connect with for whatever reason it is. It doesn't mean that they have expectations of you. It doesn't mean that they're attached to an outcome with you. And it doesn't mean you have to be. It just means that you follow your signs and your guidance, and you go to where you're being shown to go, and you be curious, be a detective, be present, you know, be okay with whatever feelings come up. Know that you can't control the situation, and just navigate it, you know, in a light way. You're going to feel so much freedom after doing it, because this is part of, like, what your soul is trying to help you towards and do. Look at this. Forgive her. Wow. So, you know, who comes to mind when that card comes out? Is there someone that you need to forgive? Is it your mother for teaching you to cope in these ways? Is it the someone who hurt you, that made you close down your heart so that you wouldn't be open to a person in this lifetime that you encountered later? Did you let somebody filter your view and how you would treat people and how you would navigate life, and who you would allow in and who you would be cutting to? Is there someone that you can forgive? And can you forgive yourself, first of all, for having trusted or coped in that way, or whatever you feel that you might need to forgive of yourself about that situation, because you are taking responsibility for being involved in it, for maybe having the expectation, for putting everything, making everything depend on it, when it could have been an experience that you approached more like I just described for this soul tie card. But now it sounds like here that, you have experienced something that caused your heart to close down and caused you to have to cope by avoiding going in that direction again. And so maybe it also interfered with you fulfilling this need to connect with another soul in this lifetime. You know, maybe you were not able to open up the lines of trust. Maybe you attributed the first experience to all experiences that would follow. You know, something like that. Kindness counts. So I keep getting dinged in my messenger, and so I have a few cards left here. I'm just going to take a moment. Okay, so you take a moment to kind of absorb what I've said here, and I'll come back and talk to you about what kindness counts and the rest of the cards that I have. There'll also be a question that I'm going to ask, so if you have a question, just think of it, and we'll be right back. Okay, so that was so interesting because, you know, whatever happens during a reading, I take that as part of the reading. And what that ding, ding, ding was on my messenger was my family, a relative, my family member, like, trying to tell me about a concern that they have for another family member. It's like, it's not even our business, you know? It's like, this is not our business. This is, like, gossipy. We don't like to talk about people behind their back. So one of the things I noticed about that whole experience was like, you know, I'm not hating on that family member. That's just their way. This is like how they have been doing it. They're not maybe caught on to this evolution that we're all going through yet. They haven't evolved that yet, you know, and it's okay. Like, I'm not like hating on this person, but I'm noticing that there's distractions, right? Like from this beautiful, important thing that we're talking about here, of you healing your heart through forgiveness of an old pain that's been harbored there and that you use protection and coping mechanisms to avoid feeling, that you're now going to allow yourself to feel it and feel a lot of things about it, and that there may be people pulling at your attention trying to get you to solve things that are not actually yours to solve, that could serve as a distraction from you actually following through on this. Okay? So take that into consideration while you're doing this, that you may need to put up boundaries, and that might be one of the things that you're learning here, is that, you know, unhappy family, right? Like, they might not like it, but you still have to do it. And then we got, in relating to other people, break the pattern. There's patterns. You've seen, oh, this person always does this, or this always happens when I do that. You've seen enough patterns now to understand that there are cycles happening. Those are karmic lessons waiting to be understood, and sometimes even they're there to avoid feeling a certain thing. So you let yourself feel the thing that's being avoided by doing it. You let yourself make a new decision and break the pattern, and take all your energy from that happening anymore. When you fully understand it and let yourself feel it, the pattern falls away because you don't need to do it anymore to avoid feeling anything. So the other card is do what needs to be done. Like, that's what needs to be done. What needs to be done is facing the patterns head on to allow yourself to make different decisions about ways to cope. So no more cutting people, no more being too proud to apologize, no more thinking that you have it all figured out or that it's bad to be vulnerable. You know, it's like, break all those patterns. So if you've thought of a question that you want the answer to, or if you haven't thought of one, you may want to pause, but the answer is see it through. Okay, so maybe you asked about, you know, what you have to do, or is there something that you're being taken away from, or, you know, whatever it is. It's like, see it through is the answer. So apply that to whatever your question was. And before we get into these couple of advice cards, I'm going to clear these cards, and I'm going to use the astrology oracle to take another look at what's going on here. So I'll be right back. Okay. So first we got Thetis. Thetis is energy of prophecy, but also of the shapeshifter. So that's interesting. Let's see what else. Withdraw. So it's okay, you know, in tarot we have the Hermit card, and what the Hermit card is like the withdrawal from others in order to kind kind of be in one's own energy, to deal with one's own self, you know. Saturn, restrictions and responsibilities. Saturn is our timekeeper. So Saturn's the one who's pushing this now. Saturn's the one who's saying, look, time is now. Now is the time. You need to do this. And so it's like, that's where you feel all that pressure. There's some goodbyes. So perhaps in order to go towards what your soul wants, you have to let go of some of what your human was holding on to, which, you know, was some of the things that may even feel like responsibilities to you. And also, you're saying goodbye to the jadedness. You're opening yourself up to a fresh way of being, the innocence of your child. You know, your inner child is ready to be navigating for you again. And so the jadedness is something that you are going to be letting go of. Reconnect with self. Yeah, that's absolutely having to do with withdrawing. You are a spiritual being. You're learning yourself as a spiritual being at this time. And I think that you've been really dealing with the mental realm. And the mental realm was navigating in such a way that was reflecting your lack of feeling safe on the earth. You know, and the ways that you decided to help yourself feel safe on earth. Another thing is pride comes from the need to feel special. Well, yes, you're special, but everybody's special, right? So it's like not that important to be thought of in a certain way by others, because everybody's special. Everybody has a specialty that they're here to, you know, create with. And the wisdom we gain up to the point where we get to the space where we can create freely is going to help us decide how we're going to use that specialty that we brought in. So you're still at the point of learning all the things that you wanted to learn from the restrictions that you came in to experience. That's where you're at. So, you know, your specialty is going to be seen when you start applying it from the place of a wise, free creator that you are still in the process of getting yourself to know yourself as. So a lot of the things that you've experienced were part of the fate that you meant to experience because you needed to learn from them. It doesn't mean that your fate is continuous. It means like take what you learned from that fate and move on to the next one. There's a lot of fates that you've been stuck in and maybe like living as if they were your destiny. But no, your destiny is what you're going towards with the wisdom you've learned from the fate that you've experienced. 7 or 8 months is a time period, so it may have been that you've been under that much pressure for that long, right? Like 7 or 8 months worth of restriction and responsibility, like of maybe this is a process that's been going on for 7 or 8 months where things have been shifting and you've been seeing things differently. And so whatever that time period means for you. Okay. Projector and decide. Very interesting. So projector is one of the ways that energy is used in humans. There's 4 or 5 ways that energy works in a human when we look at it through the lens of human design. You can look up human design. There are free calculators to find out how your energy works. But whether you're a projector or not, this energy coming out in this reading is telling me that the way a projector's energy works, so you may need to like realize this about either yourself or somebody else. The way a projector's energy works is they reach into the core of a person. So it's like they relate best on a one-on-one basis. They can get easily overwhelmed by groups. And they also, because their energy reaches into the core of a person and they can see right through them, that their energy could feel like an intrusion if it's not invited. And that they have wisdom, and they have wisdom to offer. They're teachers and wise ones. But the wisdom is only meant to be offered to those who ask for it. So there may be someone that you need to ask for wisdom, or you may need to withdraw and only offer your wisdom to those who ask. It may be that you need to extend an invitation to somebody who cannot put their energy forth towards you because it wouldn't be appropriate, or vice versa. right? Like maybe you need to wait to be invited to put your energy forth towards something particular. But so, and when it comes to the jaded energy, it's the word decide is falling next to that. So it's like this jadedness isn't going to just disappear. You have to use your free will, and you have to decide when it's time to let it go. So you get to decide, and you also get to decide which invitations you want to accept. Like, just because a projector is waiting for an invitation before they apply their wisdom and knowledge, they still have to decide which invitations are right for them. So that's something you may need to do as well. And Pisces, like, meaning it's not all clear. This is a completely spiritual journey that is not fully defined. Your free will is actually very much at play here. You decide how this is going to go. Yes, Saturn is going to put you under pressure. Yes, Saturn is going to give you returns on the investments you make. But it's ultimately your free will that decides how that's going to go. Is it going to be smooth? Is it going to be rough? Are you going to have to be stripped of everything right down to the core again and again in order for you to learn this? Or are you going to kind of surrender some of the old ways of operating to understand that there's an upgraded way that you're being invited to? And here you are being invited to it. Here's your invitation. You get to decide if you want to take it. And you can't take the jadedness with you. And there are some things that you're going to have to leave behind. Okay? But reconnect with yourself so that you're making these decisions from that place within you that you do feel safe with, that you understand is true for you, and it's not a logical place. Okay? The logical mind has been used to navigate things that were patterns. Now, you're not in the place of patterns anymore. You're breaking patterns, remember? So especially in relationships, and especially some people will not appreciate that. So you're special no matter what. Your specialty will be shown later. You're gathering what you need in order to navigate to the place where you will be able to express your specialty. And this is all a journey that your soul is meant to be on. Nothing's gone wrong. This is not to shame or blame you. Everything that you learned by dealing in the logical realms of being in control and kind of being the boss of things and being cutting and just, what some people would even call narcissism. Trust me, the people who are people-pleasing and using empathy are also using forms of narcissism. So nothing's gone wrong here. You're actually just looking at energy from a certain perspective and how certain coping mechanisms play out, It's like even now while I'm talking to you about this, like I have, that interruption from a family member, and they wanted me to solve an issue that wasn't even mine to solve and that wasn't even theirs to bring to me. And like there's a little part of me that feels a little bit like, well, should I be solving this? Should I be handling this? And it's like, well, actually that's probably my family member's energy knocking on the door of my wall. So what I'm going to do is apply a rainbow bridge to that energy right now. I'm just going to send a rainbow bridge and say, look, there's a higher way of dealing with this. Figure it out. Here's all the tools that you need. Meaning I'm only putting it in my energy body for them to figure it out. I'm not actually going in and solving it for them because I'm not their mommy, and they're not my child at this point. Like, even my children are old enough to now navigate for themselves. So like I'm not meant to take the responsibility like that. Now, if this family member had come to me and said, I have this problem and I was wondering if you could give me any insight, that would be a different story. That would be an invitation for me to share my wisdom directly with a person who it would be affecting, without manipulating others, without trying to control the outcome of others, and without interfering in others' lessons. Now, that would be something I could invest in without feeling like I was creating an imbalance or doing something that would create karma. So you see what I mean there? Okay, so let's see what the advice cards say here before we go. First house, so you're actually getting to know who you are, and yes, you'll be the boss of you, and yes, you make all the choices in your free will, but you'll be navigating from a place that honors all of you, that is not operating in such a way to make sure you exclude parts of you that feel things that are uncomfortable or intense or painful. And there may be a dietary change. So it's saying take into consideration what you're consuming. Maybe it's a matter of doing it in moderation. Maybe some things need to be added in or some things need to be excluded. But it is asking you to look at that, because that's also energy intake, and it has to do with the level of care that you're offering your body. So, you know, whereas you may have been cutting to people and cutting them out and kind of being the boss, you may have already also treated your body that way. You may have expected your body to endure a certain level of abuse. You may have been really hard on your body, pushed it past its comfort level. And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, but there may be a level of reestablishing a relationship with your body, because it is the navigation vessel, the tool, the spaceship, so to speak, that you're using to navigate Earth, and it makes a lot more sense to be on good terms with your body. So check in with your body and see what changes it might be asking for at this time, because as you feel things and as you become more in tune with who you really are, that's just going to be naturally something that your body is going to demand of you, and it may get louder and louder if you don't do that, right? Like a different family member altogether has an issue where he smokes cigarettes, and his body will sometimes throw up a lot, like his food or liquid, right after he smokes a cigarette. And, you know, he hasn't caught on to the idea that that's his body's way of saying, like, hey, I don't really like this, what you're doing anymore, and I'm not going to tolerate it. And every time you do it, I'm going to show you that I don't like it. You know, it's like, well, eventually he's probably going to catch on that the cigarettes make him vomit every time. You know, but until then, his body's going to get louder with it and be more and more persistent with it. So, very interesting. Okay, now, this is beautiful. I've really enjoyed this. This is like something that a lot of people will be going through. And so you will be an example to a lot of people, you know. But you don't have to, like, go tell them what to do. You just have to do what you do. And the ones who feel like you have something that, you know, they can learn from, they might ask you, or they might just observe you. But either way, like, it's important that you take these steps, because you are seen by people, and you are an important example of what it is to work through some difficult spaces of navigating from a logical mental realm to navigating as a whole being here to traverse Earth in a whole state, and here to make amends and make spiritual connections on the Earth realm. Okay, so remember, this is just information to reflect on. It's meant to be helpful, so just take what's helpful for you and leave the rest, and perhaps I'll see you in a future reading. Thank you for being here. I pick 4. I chose the blue agate. Oh my gosh, I have been so thirsty throughout all these readings, so you may too. Like, I just can't even quench my thirst. So there's just a lot of energy moving through this. So I'm just clearing the space. Before we begin, some nice Palo Santo. Ooh, I just love Palo Santo. Okay. And I'm going to take some water. I don't know how much that container is, 2 quarts or something like that, but I drank it all during this reading. Just finished it, so I'll probably need more. Let's see what your cards have to say. First one, Earthed. This is from the soul's perspective. Learning how to be human in the world, but not of it. Ah, yes. So you may find yourself feeling really isolated at this time as your awareness expands, and that you're finding things that you used to believe you don't believe anymore, and that maybe your beliefs are clashing with a lot of people around you. And you just kind of find yourself immersed in this awareness that a lot of people around you don't necessarily see. And you may feel like also that you're kind of being bogged down by these feelings of loneliness or isolation. You may see also where people have gone ahead of you and been able to find their way based on the information that you're also seeing. So I think you know that you're not necessarily alone per se, but that you're not directly in contact with people that necessarily believe what you believe. That you're kind of in a cocoon at this point. Kind of just left to like look around and see and things from a different perspective. Yeah, and you're kind of seeing a lot of things that kind of don't agree with you anymore. And it's like you have to take each one of those things and figure out the higher meaning in them and see them each from a higher meaning. And it involves like changing your habits, the way you talk about things, the way you operate. Like, you know, like maybe now when you were relating with others, it used to be like about gossip sometimes maybe. And now that just doesn't sit right with you. This is just an example. You know, you may have left gossip behind a long time ago. But, you know, so then you're finding like, oh, there must be a different way to relate to people that doesn't involve gossip. You know, things like that. You're having to figure out new ways to do things here on Earth. And maybe you're even encountering, you know, people that you used to relate to, and now you're like, well, can I tell you what I really think? You know, like maybe you're finding yourself in a position to actually like clarify to people that you're not all about that life anymore. Like, you know, like the shiny, surfacey level things don't appeal to you the way that they used to, or they're not your main focus the way they may have been before, or they're not the way that you want to relate to people anymore, even. It could be. So I think that, you know, you're having to return to a level of curiosity because you don't know how people are going to accept how you think and feel. And if you're approaching it from a level of curiosity, like giving them the benefit of the doubt that like, yeah, it might seem weird, but maybe they'll at least be open to it. And, you know, some will, some won't. But like just being curious about that, like, are you open to me speaking candidly? You know, things like that are kind of how you're navigating this change, which makes beautiful sense. And I think that you probably feel yourself being protected, feel yourself you're very aware when you're in a cycle, like when you're like, I've done this before, this keeps happening when I do this. Like you're really able to identify where you come around to the end of a cycle and it's like, oh, well, what? The only thing I can do is start that again? No, you're identifying patterns and cycles for a reason. You may be having a lot of information come to you through your dream state. You may be doing some like dream analysis. You may be studying it. You may be working on it with somebody else. We've got the Wolf Guardian. You are safe and protected at all times. And that's the sense that I got from the Dragon card as well. Like, you know you're not alone. You know you're being guided. You know that there's those here that came before you that have sort of, you know, left enough information and breadcrumbs and understanding for you to be able to navigate and gain your wisdom and transmute what you need to and see things from the higher perspective one at a time as you go. I think maybe you've even like through this, because you're having to approach people in a curious state to find out whether or not they're going to be open to you now that you're this, right? Now that you're this true to who you are, like maybe it's caused you to even like be really cautious with opening your heart and things like that. Maybe you feel like it's just easier to be by yourself and to not ask for help and to just figure it out on your own. I think you found yourself to be really resilient, strong, hardworking, and able to rely on yourself. So that's what you've continued to do. Like maybe you've always been that way, so why wouldn't you navigate this part of your life that way as well? So most of the guidance that you have and the support that you have is in the ethers. There may be a need for you to turn inward, like way more completely. See, you're still in the level of like realizing your separateness or your inability to relate to others now that you've grown into this place of awareness that you're in. And maybe you've been through different stages of this depending on where you are in your journey. But like now, it's also pointing out that there's a stage here that requires you to go inward. So to stop worrying about, you know, how you're going to relate to others so much and your difference and your aloneness from others, but like actually go inward and be with all those feelings one by one, because those are the feelings that need your attention at this point. There's old buried stuff that you're going to need to trudge up within your own psyche, you know? So yeah, you might be able to see through relating to others and through trying to relate to others some of the pains and discomforts that come up. But once you do, go inward and be with those, because that's the value in it. It's like when somebody shows you their back, that probably feels a certain way. And instead of ignoring that and just shrugging that off and saying, well, they're just not where I am. No, go to the feeling, be with the feeling and accept the feeling, be present with the feeling of discomfort of being separated from somebody you love or care about or wanted to be connected to or felt a resonance with or wanted to like you. You know, all of the things that come to your awareness through this process are things that are important. It are things that are clues as to what needs your presence and what needs to be transmuted for you now. You may want to start keeping a journal, especially of your dreams, because there may be clues in there, but also just in general of the insights that you come across. There's something about documenting your process. And this also may help you feel more complete and concise in what you're learning, and it also may bring to your awareness other things that you want to realize about this whole situation as you put things to rest. You also may be able to kind of channel this like dragon spirit or this higher version of yourself or the part of you that can kind of guide you. So also, like, maybe you kind of come to insights and you don't want to forget them, you know, keep them in a journal. You know, then you can go back to the journal and kind of flip to a page and be guided through whatever it is you're traversing in the moment that you're traversing it. Because, of course, when we come into the old buried stuff and we see through the lens of the old buried thing, sometimes we're not aware enough in those moments of what tools we have to navigate through it. We don't remember that it's there so that we can be present for it. So, but then if you have a journal to turn to and you flip to the certain page and it reminds you, be present with whatever arises. Whatever arises, love that. That was a Matt Kahn thing that he said a while ago. And it kind of stuck with me a little bit in my mind. And it's like, whatever you journal could be kind of a guidebook for you in the times that you fall under the veil again. And, you know, working through some of the old stuff that's waiting to be transmuted. So that's going to be a really powerful tool for you. And every cycle that you complete can be celebrated. It's like you are closing out these little cycles, these little kind of loops of energy that you've identified are being cleared. And all because you've been brave enough to be curious about them. And so as you complete these cycles, one of the things that could be complete is a marriage and a commitment. Like there could be even endings in those realms, but there could also be an upgrade of it, you know, like can you speak candidly? Like, are you guys on the same page? Are you both willing to be growing and learning? You know, maybe that's possible, and maybe that's possible because you were able to speak candidly and have a conversation about it that was honest. You know, when you go into it, instead of going into it like with a doubt and a fear, like, can you clear the doubt and fear before you go into that conversation so that you can have the conversation from the full expectation and understanding that whatever happens is the right thing to happen, that it all be happening for you. So knowing that your thoughts create your reality, can you go in expecting the highest outcome for all? Because you've already spent time clearing and being present with the fears and doubts that would have prohibited you from going into the conversations that you need to have from that standpoint. Okay. There is a question. If you have a question, we're going to get the answer. So if you need to take a moment to think of the question, then do that now. You can pause if you need to. But the answer to your question is plan for change. So if it was about, is your marriage going to end or anything like that, it could be like that, plan for change, which doesn't mean it's going to end necessarily, but there's going to be some changes to how you guys operate. Like, that's not necessarily what it was. That may be an example for somebody. But like, plan for change is like understanding that things are going to change because you've changed. And to allow that possibility in all relationships, you know? Like, maybe you had a karmic deal, a kind of a bond with somebody which said they always had to show up like a certain way to always activate you into a certain cycle or a certain way of feeling. And once you clear that cycle or certain way of feeling, that person doesn't have to show up in that manner anymore. So that's why it's beautiful that you're going towards people in a curious manner, allowing them to be who and what they are. But also know that that could be the case for a lot of people. And so you can plan to change the way that you relate in general. When you relate, it's important to ask for what you want. You're setting yourself up to do so when you say, can I speak candidly? Because already the other person is prepared that you're going to say something that could be jarring or unexpected or a taboo topic or something you've never talked about before. But like, maybe it's also setting you up so that you can say, like, I would like to grow and learn together with you. Is that something that you're open to? You know, and just looking at what relationships you can keep, how you can keep balance in your relationships, so that, you know that if someone's like, well, I can't focus on that right now, the balanced way to deal with that is to give them some space, and to not have expectations of them, and make that okay, and make sure that you're not feeling any certain way about that. And if you do feel certain ways about that, go be by yourself and be able to process those ways, like disappointment or expectation or need or want or try to control. Any of those things can be accepted and loved in yourself in order to free yourself from having the expectation of the other to show up in a certain way. It's you that stays balanced. You can't control others. Okay. So very interesting. And from here, I'm going to clear these cards and then get some energy from the oracle bucket, and I'm gonna pause in order to do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, got some more water. You may want to hydrate. I'm gonna just kind of mix up this bucket before I pull. Alright, now we've got Capricorn, creating structure, responsibility, organization. 48 hours could be a significant amount of time to take into consideration for this and for you. Be curious. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? So you already had curious in the first spread. Now you're getting curious again, and there's just this beautiful encouragement for you to stay curious. And being curious is that energy of the innocence of a child. And a child comes into a new experience. They don't have expectations. They don't have attachment to the outcome. They're just willing to see what it is, right? And so that's where you're at. Isis, and what you see might be clues as to what part of you needs to be having your presence and needs your alchemy and needs to have your love. And you can feel this, right? You feel when you come across something through your curiosity that doesn't feel right, that feels off balance, that feels off, that feels like it puts you in discomfort. That's the clue. It's like when it doesn't feel like it's in harmony, that's where you put your focus. You may benefit from having an astrology reading at this time. I do astrology readings, and I do them intuitively, and you can book your session on my website, which is in the description box if you're interested. But really, you know, different astrologers have different perspectives, and you can always benefit from having more than one reading, or, you know, go towards the astrologer that you feel drawn to. We have effort. Like, if you have this need to dig, right, the curiosity is even like pulling you towards knowing more. It's like you can put effort towards learning about astrology yourself as well, because there is more to learn, and you are actually making room for a higher perspective. And it may seem like you kind of woke up one day and then your awareness was bigger and everything was different, and like maybe even like the buried old stuff doesn't even seem like your stuff, you know? It could be like that, like you're embodying a higher version of either yourself or another energy. And so you're still working through some of the older energies that was within that body, or that is within your body. And so there may be effort required in order to untangle and understand some of these things, because maybe you either forgot memories, or you don't even directly have memories associated with what it is. So you're having to navigate in real time what energies come up through your curious encounters. So Thetis is it's a energy of prophecy and divination, but it's also the shapeshifter, and that's really what you're having to be, right? You're having to navigate people from this bigger awareness and find out where everyone stands now. Interesting. So pray is hold space for the outcome that you prefer. Surrender control, like treat it like you are a child here, just navigating a new space. And use your free will to navigate and to make the choices you're making. Look at the commitments that you have. Frigg is the wife in a marriage to Thor, I think, or Odin. Thor. And so I may have that wrong on who's married to who there, and I know there are more than one name that applies to that mythology, because the story was told more than once, but because Freya is another of the names. But anyway, Frigg to me in this reading means wife, and we did talk about the commitments and looking at the commitments, so something about that. We've got 3 weeks for a time period. Pluto, transformation. This is something is definitely transforming due to having to transmute and make room for this higher level of being. And you may actually be pulled towards things that feel like they're not in harmony with you, right? You may feel curious about things that don't feel good, but like you still have to dig and look and see. And it's like, okay, then dig and look and see, and pray to be guided, and pray to keep your balance through that, because within something that looks like a lie, that looks off, the solution isn't going to be to run from it. It's going to be to look and be curious about it. You're tantalized towards it for a reason, because there's a gift that you will discover about yourself once you're in that situation. So it has to do with how you either become curious about that situation, how you navigate that situation, the things that you do to deal with or solve that situation. Something is going to reveal something about you and how you navigate that is essentially a gift that you have, a specialty you have in this lifetime. And so even though, yes, you're using your generally want to go towards things that feel in harmony with you, you're going to feel tantalized and curious about something that feels like it's not in harmony with you. And it's still something that's for you to figure out. Okay? Still has a gift and a benefit for you to engage with or look into. And use your prayer. And there may be some shape shifting in there. It's like something looks like something different than what it feels like. And this could all happen within the next 48 hours. That's why we're talking about it now, okay? Something looks different than it feels like, but it's still something for you to investigate. It's still something for you to be curious about. There may be a piece of yourself that you collect when you surrender your control. Like, you can't go into this situation thinking that you know what it is or trying to control the outcome or expecting of the other. You have to go into it with that curiosity. There's such a beautiful, perfect thing that's going to happen here. Oh wow, I can just feel the beauty in it. It's so nice. All right, so the advice cards are second house. So look at possessions, how you make a living, and your self-worth. Okay, so look at those things. And is there any place that you're settling for less than you deserve? Is there any place that you're acting in such a way that doesn't honor the standard that you believe that you should be agreeing to in your life? And is there a way that you have too many possessions or not enough possessions, or possessions are weighing you down, or possessions are ruling you in some way that it's not useful to you anymore? Maybe you have too many possessions. Also, your friendships. Look at your friendships and your hopes and dreams, and revisit those and see what it is. Do you still want to be committed to certain things that you hoped or dreamed for, and certain friendships? Like, the advice is to kind of look at these aspects of your life and be willing to transform and transmute anything that does not work for you any longer, that is ready to be looked at and kind of cleared out, that's lived its usefulness out. It's time to look under the surface of why it is the way it is, why you've been living it out the way that it is, and what you've been thinking and believing about it, and then look at it from a higher point of view, to understand fully and to balance out the energy in order to transform and transmute it and bring it to a higher level of being. So in those realms of life, the second house and the 11th house, the possessions, how you make a living, and the friendships and the hopes and the dreams, those are the realms that we're really focused on at this time. So there's a gift in being willing to kind of uproot and look at the buried stuff in those realms as well. So like from this higher consciousness way of looking at the world, you're looking into old stuck ways that the old life was content with, and you're giving up control to it, and you're looking at it from new eyes, a fresh view, being curious about it, not needing it to be a certain way, but being willing to see it as it is. And that presence with what is transforms it right away, but also lets you decide where to go from there. And this will take your conscious effort. It will take the application of your free will to do this. Okay? Wow, so beautiful. So maybe part of what you're looking at and tantalized towards is somebody else who has also experienced a upgrade of energy. And it's like maybe before there was something where there was dishonesty or something felt out of harmony, and now perhaps through prayer and your willingness to be curious about it, you see that there's actually an upgrade in that energy as well. It's completely possible. And it could be the energy of someone in a marriage that you're committed to. Wow. Woo! Wow, so remember, this is just information to reflect on. Only take what is helpful for you. I want to thank you for spending your time with me, and perhaps we'll see you in a future reading. Bye now.